Welcome back to Aviation Gab, everyone.
Yeah, it's good to be back, but not exactly for the happiest of reasons today, is it, Jason?
Jessica, you're absolutely right. We've got some pretty credible breaking news to discuss that has really sent ripples through global aviation.
Indeed. It's one of those moments that really highlights how interconnected everything is, especially when you factor in, those bigger geopolitical tensions.
Exactly. So let's just dive right into it. So, to kick things off, let's talk about what actually happened, because it really set everything in motion. We're looking at June 23rd, 2025, essentially after some U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites.
Right. So already a tense situation.
Exactly. Already a pretty volatile situation. And in response to those airstrikes, Iran, they launched missiles. And these weren't just, launched anywhere. They were specifically aimed at Al Udeid Air Base, which, as many of our listeners probably know, is right there in Qatar.
Wow. So a direct hit or a potential direct hit on an airbase.
Well, that's the thing, Jessica. Thankfully, Qatar, they really acted swiftly. They actually intercepted, a significant number of those missiles, and thankfully, they reported absolutely no casualties, which is pretty incredible given the circumstances.
That's a huge relief, honestly.
It really is. But even with that successful interception, for safety's sake, Qatar took immediate, decisive action. They closed their airspace. And that closure, it wasn't just for a few minutes. It was for over 5 hours, just to ensure, everyone's safety and to clear the skies, literally.
5 hours. That's a long time for an entire country's airspace to be shut down. You can already imagine the cascading effects of something like that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's really where the story for aviation begins to unfold. That immediate closure, that was the spark, the initial domino.
And that's exactly right, Jason. I mean, thinking about those 5 hours, it immediately brings us to, like, the direct impact on Qatar Airways because they are, based right there, and, oh my goodness, the chaos. We saw flights from major global cities. I mean, places like Barcelona, London, New York, San Francisco, they were either just completely diverted or worse, they were forced to return to their origin. Just, think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's a nightmare for passengers and crew.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just, turning back. Some flights actually landed in alternate cities, which, sounds okay, but it's still not their destination. So we're talking Medina, Istanbul, Dammam, Riyadh, anywhere they could find, really.
Wow. So a lot of on-the-fly decisions being made by air traffic control and pilots.
Oh, totally, totally. And to give you like a really concrete example of this immediate chaos, you had a London flight, for instance, that was circling, get this, for 7 hours. 7 hours, just in a holding pattern. I can't even imagine being on that plane. And then there was another one, a San Francisco flight, which was supposed to go to Doha, obviously, and it ended up landing in Dammam, which is, in Saudi Arabia. So not even close to where it was supposed to be. Just illustrating that immediate, we have to land somewhere, anywhere situation.
Yeah, that's incredibly disruptive. And you just think about, I mean, the fuel, the crew hours, the passenger frustration, it all just it builds up so quickly.
It does. It really does. And I think that just highlights how quickly an airspace closure, even a temporary one, can just unravel entire flight networks for an airline.
That's such a good point, Jessica, about how quickly it unravels because it wasn't just Qatar Airways, right? I mean, this whole incident, it created a much broader aviation disruption across like the entire Gulf region and frankly internationally as well. It's pretty staggering when you look at the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it was a domino effect.
Totally. A massive domino effect. We're talking over 160 flights, like just completely rerouted, which is a huge number. And you get these almost unbelievable stories, like Qantas, for instance. They had a Perth to Paris flight that had to turn back after 15 hours in the air. Can you imagine? You're almost there, and then, nope, turn around.
15 hours? That's insane. People must have been beyond frustrated.
Beyond frustrated is an understatement, I think. And another Qantas flight, it was diverted to Singapore. Not quite as dramatic as turning back after 15 hours, but still, completely off course. And it wasn't just Qatar that reacted. Other Gulf countries like the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, they also, temporarily closed their airspace as well, just compounding the issue.
Wow. So it truly became a regional no-fly zone, effectively.
Pretty much, yeah. It really did. And a big part of why all this massive rerouting happened wasn't just like the immediate missile threat, but also GPS issues. These kinds of conflicts, they can mess with GPS signals. And then, of course, the general overriding safety concerns just meant that, airlines had to find completely new corridors, sometimes really long ones, to just avoid the entire area. So it's pretty clear this wasn't just a minor blip for one airline.
Okay, so, I mean, eventually the airspace did reopen, right? Like after, what was it, about 5 hours?
Yeah, about 5 hours, if I remember correctly.
Right. So Qatar reopened its airspace after those 5 hours, which, sounds like a quick turnaround. But the thing is, even with that, the backlogs and the delays, they really persisted. It wasn't like flipping a switch and everything went back to normal.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you've got so many planes, so many passengers. It's not an instant fix.
Exactly. And it really had a massive impact on the passengers. We're talking about around 25,000 passengers, which is just mind boggling, were affected at Doha's Hamid International Airport alone. Can you just imagine that kind of chaos at one airport, trying to figure out where everyone needs to go or when their flight is or if their flight is even happening?
Oh my goodness, 25,000? That's like a small town, just, stuck at the airport.
It really is, and it highlights the domino effect, too, because it wasn't just Qatar Airways that had to deal with this. Major international carriers like Emirates, British Airways, and Air France, they all had to jump in and adjust their schedules, offering flexible rebooking options for their passengers, which is, I mean, it's good that they did that, but it just shows you the ripple effect on a global scale. Everyone had to scramble.
Yeah, so it's not just about diverting a flight, it's about the entire subsequent operation for days, probably weeks afterwards.
Exactly, the knock-on effect must have been insane.
So, I mean, when you look at all of this, right, all the diversions, the reroutes, the 25,000 passengers just at Doha alone, it really just like paints a picture of how incredibly vulnerable global aviation can be, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. I mean, you think about one regional incident, right? One flashpoint, and suddenly, boom, flights are just everywhere or not going anywhere, as the case may be. It's just wild.
Yeah, and the speed of it too. Like it was almost instantaneous, wasn't it? From the moment the airspace closed, everything just froze up or had to pivot.
Absolutely. And it's not just a few flights. Like, if you think about it, we're talking about over 160 plus flights rerouted just from this one event. It's mind boggling, the scale.
Exactly. And the number of people, like you said, 25,000 at Doha alone, but then think about all the connecting flights, the other airlines affected by those knock-on delays. It's really exponential.
It truly is. And the level of coordination that must have gone into just, figuring out where planes could land, what routes were safe, getting reroutes approved, rebooking all those passengers. It's just, wow, it's a massive, massive logistical undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, you need this sort of unprecedented level of, well, global cooperation, really, from all these different carriers and air traffic controls. It's not just one airline's problem, is it?
No, not at all. It really shows how interconnected everything is and how quickly something, in one corner of the world, a regional conflict can just cascade and mess up travel for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands worldwide. It's a huge lesson, I think, for the industry.
Well, that's really quite the incident to break down, isn't it, Jessica? Thank you so much for joining me today for this really critical discussion on Aviation Gab.
Absolutely, Jason. It was a lot to unpack, but it's just so important to understand these events. And yeah, let's hope for some smoother skies and fewer disruptions in the future, right?
For sure. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next episode, whatever wild aviation story we might be covering.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time on Aviation Gab.